every single life matters.
The primary responsibility of government, first of all, which is security.
We bank mostly on intervention rather than prevention.
Democracy is a government where power resides with the people.
Hello and a very warm welcome to you. This is You.Gov, all about you and all about the government. We talk about government functions, responsibilities, as well as your corresponding obligations to the government. Recently, we've been talking about issues that affect the citizenry in Nigeria. We've been talking about the impact of the lockdown on security and things like that. We've also talked about the issue of rape increasing during the period of lockdown. But another striking matter that we need to look into, we need to consider, is the impact of the lockdown on mental health, the impact of the lockdown on education. I'm Olomu-Agbodo. After this break, we'll tell you more.
From Lagos
to London, from Johannesburg
for several years, our economy
to the United States,
identifying houses of worship.
We have all the world covered for you, no matter where you are.
Love with News is at the heart of it all.
I have experience.
We bring you our perspectives of stories behind the story.
The signs given to us for the entry of these things are before us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us on this station.
This week, we are exploring the impact of lockdown on education and social well-being. Lockdown measures implemented across the world are beginning to be eased, allowing students to return to school. But Nigeria insists schools should remain shut. No official date has been set for when schools will resume, and graduating students are more affected as they believe they are being set back. Some students sent their comments from different parts of Nigeria. Next on our Street Teacher segment.
Now, this lockdown, because of the COVID-19, has also made everyone conscious of the fact that online education is also very, very important. Everything is going online. Like, we're losing that grip of physical one-on-one interaction, and which is very important for learning. But we are actually seeing that in doing this period is not so necessary. I've been taking classes online, and I think this is one of the major things. But another thing that I would say is the setback, because many exams, like the WAEC now, is being postponed because of this lockdown, and it's very, very bad. But that's just the major things that are happening now to our education and education system because of this lockdown.
Actually been negative in some aspects. In the aspect of education, students are no longer following their education because of the lockdown. They talk about doing an online classes when the teachers don't even have a phone or the means to pursue the online classes.
Teachers are not paid, especially private school teachers. All of them in the private school sector haven't received any salary from April. And most of them are breadwinners and mothers in a home. Thereby they are thrown out of business and they're looking for something else to for their livelihood. Another impact is that children are becoming idle. And you know that idleness is the devil's workshop. Staying at home leads to many crime, rape, stealing, theft, kidnapping, all of them are done by students who ought to be in school. Another impact is the fact that all those whose job or livelihood are dependent on education, like the shuttle drivers, the clerical workers, non-tutorial staffs, all of them are thrown out of business. Why? Because the children are at home, so they have nothing to do. Almost a whole section is being lost now due to lockdown. The security section is that there is increase in crime at home because everybody is now at home.
In education, it has been a huge disadvantage. There are lots of things it has caused to the students. Lots of aspiration are being held down. Lots of things are being held down. Now, it also gave distance between the teachers and the students. They talked about online school, which is not serious. It's not serious at all. It's not making sense. Because some people say most times they won't even have the money to get the data to go online and, join the class.
All COVID-19 forced schools to globally switched to online learning lately. In developing countries like Nigeria, millions of children without remote learning access have been left behind.
When the lockdown started, the whole students came back from their various schools, university, secondary school, and their primary and nursery school. So it made people lost concentration in their studies, and which also made parents to quit some of their jobs so that they can take care of their kids.
A parent also shared her experience of the lockdown.
So the impact of the lockdown on education and security are kind of synonymous to each other. First of all, where there's idleness, crime would definitely increase because an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Now, the impact on education is that time it will be lost for these kids. They will have no time to make progress in their education, moving from one class to the other. Parents will now be tasked with the responsibility of educating these children. And we know that most parents are not certified educators, so they're not gonna be able to do this job properly. Also, the parents will now be adding that to the responsibility of providing for the home and also providing protection for these kids. On the other hand, the impact of the lockdown on security is that crime rate is going to go up because now people are out of jobs, people don't have money, and they have to survive, they have to feed, so they're going to resort to bad stuff, they're going to resort to crimes, and so crime rate is definitely going to go up. So yeah, the lockdown's impact on education and security is really a bad one.
You're welcome back. So this week, we're taking a look at the education sector first. You heard students talking about the fact that they've been at home for so long. Some of them don't even know what to do themselves. And you know the issue of the idle mind. What happens to the idle mind? We don't want our children to be idle. Very interestingly, WAEC came out to set out guidelines for the graduating students, the students in senior secondary schools in Nigeria, that they'll be embarking on exams very, very soon. They actually gave a timeline of 4th of August to 5th of September, but the very next day they came and made a 360 turn and said, no, students are not going back to school, they are not going back to write examinations. What actually happened? But first, before we get to our expert of the day that will be talking about the impact of the lockdown on education, I want to take a listen to this soundbite by the Minister of Education and representative of WAEC in Nigeria. Take a listen.
The states who are willing should make their schools available for their children to revise. We've done the most we can with our representative at WAEC, and we have this afternoon confirmed that the dates allotted for the exams will be from the 4th of August through to the 5th of September.
Schools must provide washing buckets with running water or taps with running water, soaps, hand sanitizers, and thermometer hand gun to check the temperature of all concerned. All examination functionaries, including the council staff on distribution, supervisors, invigilators, inspectors, candidates, and school officials will be required to wear face masks, wash and sanitize their hands daily and throughout the duration of the examination. Let me assure you and the general public that we shall adhere strictly to social/physical distancing in the examination halls by making sure that candidates sit 2 meters apart.
But these new measures have financial implications, and the examination body is soliciting for support from government at all levels for a smooth implementation.
We are appealing to the government at various levels to come to our aid. We equally call on multinational companies, corporate organizations, and philanthropic individuals to donate this PPE to us. It is essential that all examination functionaries are well kitted to avoid the spread of the disease. May I also use this medium to escalate our challenge to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and to humbly request for any possible assistance.
He also urges students to shun all forms of examination malpractice, as self-reliance is the sure key to success.
I must not fail to warn all schools and candidates to shun any form of examination malpractice. Lack of preparedness is not an excuse to cheat. For the benefit of doubt, standards already set remain sacrosanct. Do not delude yourself by thinking that they will be lowered due to the prevailing circumstances. Therefore, as usual, you get what you deserve. It will be a double tragedy for any candidate to write the examination under these very difficult circumstances and not to have any result.
Quite interesting. They made our comments, they came out with guidelines and made a serious U-turn saying we did not say that. But the issue remains that our children are going to be affected. According to the chairman of the Education Committee in UK, it said, we are going to create a decade of educational poverty if lockdown continues. We do not want our children to be bankrupt in terms of academics. We want them to be fully grounded and prepared for the future. They are indeed the leaders. But what does this education expert have to say about this? Take a listen.
To look at the impact of lockdown on education from 3 points: the impact on the pupils, the impact on the parents, and the impact on the teachers. As we all know, some schools are doing e-learning, while some others are basically preparing worksheets and distributing to their pupils. It is important to know that none of these can effectively take the place of a classroom learning. Children learning is better enhanced when there is social interaction among themselves and the teacher, just like saying, learning by observation and inspiration. A child is inspired to do what he sees his or her classmate doing. As we say, iron sharpeneth iron. And for learning and total development of a child, there have to be extracurricular activities, and for months now, nothing has happened in this regard. Learning commences from the assembly grounds. We have what we call circle time for the preschooler. They play and learn together. Group work, a component of teaching, has not been possible, and so also is student-to-student interactions. There are a lot of benefits in this. Not all schools are doing the e-learning. In the rural area, I don't think anything of such is happening. Even if we say we want to go the route, you can imagine what population of students that will be left out. You may also need to know that not all parents can afford to pay extra money being charged by the schools. No salary, lockdown of businesses, and means of livelihood. Their major concern is to feed their families, and hence the education of their children has taken a backseat. There are families with children who have special needs like neurodevelopmental disorder, autism, and so on. Teachers have been trained to handle such people. And on the side of the parents, cost of data, fuel in their generator, crèche has been closed. Parents that previously does not want to leave their children with neighbors and housemates are being forced to do so. For those that had to resume physically at their place of work, kids are being exposed. For parents working from home, Distraction can be something they have to contend with. Unstable internet services, preschoolers can easily be distracted. For e-learning to be effective, the children has to be under supervision. Thus, the parents may need to be with them all through the period of their class. For this duration of the class, this is a serious challenge for some parents. And on the teachers, apart from government schools and a very small percentage of private schools who still pay salaries, most teachers are not being paid. This is a matter. Teachers also face the additional pressure of converting all teaching materials to digital formats, making worksheets, taking classes on platforms like Zoom, Google Classrooms, checking WhatsApp images, and reporting to parents and teachers. The earlier the school resumes, the better for everyone.
Well, quite interesting. The impact of education is not just on students, it also affects the teachers, it also affects the parents of these children as well. We are all affected, so schools must reopen. We want to go on a quick break. When we return, we'll also look at the mental implications, the psychological impact of the lockdown.
It's 3,653 days snowballed into 10 years of victories, 10 years of impact, 10 years of beauty, 10 years of excellence, and 10 years of successes. Thank you, our dear esteemed partners. You made the years worth its while. For your unflinching support, your seeds of love, for standing with us through and through. Thank you. It's our festival of vibes.
You're welcome back. Away from education now, we're also looking at the mental development, the mental health of those that have been at home for so long. What is the impact on their mental health? We're, first of all, hearing about the social distancing in schools. Is this not going to affect children? How will children grow in this type of environment? We have a psychological expert that will be telling us more on this.
Now, the thing is that, all right, social isolation is associated with poor mental health. There was a research done by two men known as Brown and Harris in 1978, which showed that response to a stressful life event is modified by present circumstance and by past experience. Present circumstance and by past experience. And that means some current circumstances make a person more vulnerable to stressful life events. So how an individual will react, or the psychological impact that this lockdown will have on a particular person is dependent on the person's current circumstance and then past experience. For instance, if somebody's current circumstance with the lockdown and attendance uncertainties and everything, socioeconomic factors, if somebody loses his or her job, and if somebody has family to feed, children and all that, and there is job loss, present circumstance, all right, it could heighten or put the person more at risk of developing a psychological condition. And then past experiences, okay, maybe somebody that has experienced an unfortunate event, has lost job before, has been out of job before, and there's somebody that has lost someone, okay, before, fear of unknown, fear of losing job, all that, okay, could also make people be more vulnerable. All these I'm mentioning are called vulnerability factors. A lot of things could affect people's vulnerability, all right, to having psychological or mental breakdown, psychological sequelae to this lockdown. Then, if I may go further again, as I said, the lockdown could not be viewed as a stressful event, okay? And according to the international classification of diseases 10, responses to stressful events, can be varied and they can be classified. There are different classifications. That could be acute stress reaction. And here in acute stress reaction, I'm talking about immediate and brief responses to sudden and intense stressors in a person who does not have another psychiatric disorder. Okay? There are people who have not been going to work. They said so many Nigerians feed from hand to mouth. They feed themselves, all right? All those sudden lockdowns, especially when it was very severe, almost total lockdown, people didn't have monies, people were afraid of their life. Some people just lost their job, all that, all right? So they could have acute stress reaction, which is an immediate and brief response, to a sudden instant stressor, okay? Usually, by definition of this, acute stress reaction requires that the response will start within an hour of exposure to the stressor and begin to diminish after not more than 48 hours. All right? It could be something like that. Then people can also have post-traumatic stress disorders, and this has to do with prolonged and abnormal response to exceptionally intense stressful circumstances. All right? So many people expressing this thing now, okay, find those that are exposed to the virus, all right, even if they say they recovered, eventually, all right, they will have psychological sequelae. Okay, they may not recover psychologically. Usually in pandemic like this or in disasters, all right, most people erroneously only focus on the physical consequences, physical outcomes, physical trauma, all right? But there are invisible psychological traumas that will be more prolonged and that may be ultimately very serious, that could even lead to death, suicide, okay, and that could lead to debilitating conditions, all right, that could affect people's well-being in future, all right, affect quality of life. So in some other places, in other climes where people are maybe more serious, they tend to address these issues, okay? While they are even establishing all those tents, so-called isolation centers, they also establish second tents where they attend to psychological needs of people. So there are a lot of things. So as I've mentioned acute stress reaction, that's post-traumatic stress. There's also adjustment disorders. And in adjustment disorder, we are talking about a more gradual and prolonged response to stressful changes in a person's life. All right? So, it could come in many ways, but usually, everything is individualized And usually in this kind of thing, if it were possible, we should use an instrument. We should screen. So there are people who are more prone to something. There are people who will be more prone to developing psychological conditions, okay, from this lockdown and from the causes of the lockdown, all right? There will be people, as I mentioned, first category, those who are already having issues. There are some who are prone to having issues, okay, maybe relatives of those that have psychological conditions already. Then those that lost their livelihood, those that lost someone during the pandemic, okay, those are more prone. We screen them. Those during the screening, there are some things that may be picked, some symptoms that may be picked that will determine those that will now have a focused care, okay, and attention to. So, is it going to have any psychological impact? Yes, of course. There will be psychological impacts. Well, in many literatures, medical literatures, we are told that children are minimally susceptible, but they are hit hardest by the psychosocial impact of the pandemic. Being locked down, okay, it's quite unusual. They are perplexed. They don't understand what is happening. All right. So they need a lot of reassurances. Being locked down will impose greater psychological burden than the physical suffering. School closure, lack of outdoor activities, aberrant dietary and sleeping habits are likely to disrupt these children's usual lifestyle. And this can potentially promote monotony, boredom, distress, impatience, annoyance, and varied neuropsychiatric manifestations. Reported increased incidences of child abuse, access to some online content that they are not supposed to have access to, and even domestic violence. And these things wouldn't have been like that if not for this lockdown and the pandemic. Now, it's important that parents, teachers, even government and non-governmental organizations are sensitized to this, are made aware of this, okay, so that they will try to mitigate the long-term consequences, the impact, psychosocial impacts of this on our children. It's not normal for a child not to interact and play with other children. All right? And then the whole children interpret things differently. They need a lot of reassurances. Okay? I'm sure even with all the news, bad news, fake news, whatever, with everything going around, I won't be surprised if some of these children are having nightmares right now. They'll be traumatized. So the adults around them needs to be reassuring them, okay? And since we are on a Christian channel platform, children should be, in fact, an environment where they are should be saturated with the Word of God. Their hearts must be guarded. They mustn't, fear must not be allowed to take root, to germinate in their hearts, all right? Because if that is allowed, a lot of things. That's where you see, even abroad, even some in the Western countries, some children are committing suicide because they don't understand. The future looks bleak. A lot of things. Okay, what a child now that the parents, a source of livelihood comes to a halt. The parent loses job and all that, and a lot of uncertainties in the world with everything happening in Nigeria. Everything looks bleak. So a child needs to be reassured that this also will be over, will come to pass and all that, that this is not the first pandemic the world has witnessed, that this also will be behind us.
Well, quite interesting. This is not how we want our children to go. It has serious impact on their social development, because schooling is not just about learning, it's also about emotional intelligence, learning how to associate with people, not just about the books. It's all round. Education is all round. And we want you to join our conversation. We always like you to send us feedback using our hashtag, and we'll also like you to send messages to the numbers I'll be showing on your screen very soon. But before we leave, we have some tidbits for you. Well, that's the much we can take this week on You.Gov. It was quite interesting talking about education, the impact of lockdown on education, and also the impact of the lockdown on the mental health of people. People are actually exhibiting different symptoms, but we don't want those symptoms to continue. So I'd like you to use our hashtag and join the conversation, hashtag You.Gov, hashtag Lover Plus. We'd like you to download our app from any of the mobile app stores, and you can also visit our website on www.loverplus.tv. I'm Olomu-Agbodo. God bless you, and God bless Nigeria. Bye for now.